the double kettlebell snatch. So I would go back and review the double kettlebell swing video because the swing is going to be the precursor to the snatch. Your ability to get the kettlebells up overhead and locked out is going to be dependent on your ability to contract your hips or extend your hips explosively. The more explosively you can extend your hips, the more the kettlebells will float, the easier it'll be to affix the kettlebells over your head into that snatch. That's number one. Number two, remember your thoracic mobility, your scapular mobility. You want to be able to hold both hands over your head without losing your cylinder or laying back, right? So a lot of people don't have the mobility to put their hands over their head, and when they start to get vertical, they do this, which is essentially losing their cylinder, right? They're ducking their back out. We always, when we finish the snatch or any overhead work, we always want to make sure that the pelvis is right under the rib cage so you've got that good cylinder, right? This is a bad cylinder because you've got anterior pelvic tilt and the energy spilling forward. This is a good cylinder where you're finishing nice and tight and you've got that good compression between your rib cage and your pelvis. So you've got that solid cylinder. So when it comes to the double kettlebell snatch, really simple now. All you're going to do is explosively hinge the kettlebells through and then explode into a double overhead. There really is no cue after that. If you've gotten your press and you've gotten your swing dialed in, then you're just basically taking it right over top. Okay, so the cue for this is, okay, just snatch. You know how to do a single kettlebell snatch. Now you're going to do the double. Wider stance. Remember your grip. You're either doing the V grip, the alpha grip. We're never doing the parallel grip. You can do the barbell grip, but that's going to be difficult. And then you're just moving around the kettlebells. So you've got to really dial in your single kettlebell snatch before you can do the double. Okay, so I'm going to do a set of 5 and explain what I'm doing, and then I'm going to do another set of 5 with a little bit more of the nuances towards the exercise. So here's what the double kettlebell snatch looks like. Okay, so that's a simple set of 5 of the double kettlebell snatch. A couple of things here. You'll notice that when I fix the kettlebells overhead, I'm pulling the kettlebells back down into the rack. I do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't want to overexpose my shoulders. When it comes to the double kettlebell snatch as opposed to the single snatch, you really have to focus on taming the arc and bringing the kettlebells down vertically. So I could bring the kettlebells down vertically and do it explosively, but it's a lot safer for me to pull it down into the rack. Now, these are only 16K kettlebells, and in the next set, I'll show you how I'm able to flip them like I would in a single kettlebell snatch, and then bring them down into that overspeed eccentric. But you have to be comfortable with a certain type of kettlebell, a certain weight of kettlebell, before you're able to explosively get it into the overspeed eccentric, flip them over and then bring them through. It's totally fine to do that, but you have to be comfortable with it. So for example, I could probably do that with a 20, flip them over and bring them through, but I would never do it with a 24 or anything heavier than a 24. Why? Because the torque is just too much momentum on my shoulders, and I don't want to dislocate my shoulders or lose any part of my body when I'm doing it. So when you're doing a double kettlebell snatch, initially when you start and you really get comfortable with it first, but you should be snatching overhead and then pulling them back down into the rack and then reloading from there. The second thing that I want to mention, and this is okay for you to do, is you can pre-swing into the snatch for the first one. You won't necessarily have to do it if you're going from over top and then going right down into your backswing, because you'll be able to generate enough momentum. But if you're starting from the ground in a dead stop, then it would be a good idea to pre-swing to get some momentum going. You get the stretch reflex going in your hamstring, and then you can drive through. So in this next set, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-swing on the first one so I can get momentum, and then I'm going to go into 5 snatches where I'm using the overspeed eccentric to drive the kettlebells down. Remember, lighter kettlebells for that overspeed eccentric. If it's something that you're not comfortable with, then I would pull the kettlebells down into the rack until you get comfortable with it. Okay? So here's another set of 5 with the pre-swing and then the overspeed eccentric. So you can see how much more explosive that is. I'm a little bit more out of breath, so that requires a little bit more energy. And you'll notice that I'm huffing and puffing right now. So my heart rate's up a little bit. So you can see how much harder that type of thing is. Remember, the idea behind going into a full speed eccentric is just to be able to tame the arc. So we never want to get the kettlebells from overhead and then cast them away from our body. We want to cast them, or we want to flip them, but then bring them down where the arc is consistent and close to your body so that they don't go too far away. That'll keep your shoulders safe. All right, so that's the double kettlebell snatch. Practice it. I wouldn't do any more than sets of 5, maybe 6, but no more than that, depending on how heavy your kettlebells are. Just really focus on practicing that exercise.